It's time for the Daily Stand Up Podcast presented by AgileDad with your host, Lee Henson. Without any further ado, let's get started. I often get hit with questions inside of my classes that I love to pull into the podcast because I feel like some of these questions are just really, really good, well positioned questions. So, the question that I got most recently in one of my classes is: should product roadmaps have dates on them? Should they be associated with things and have dates? And I thought that was a great question. So I started doing a little bit of research and I started digging around and I found a lot of information. But whether product roadmaps should have dates or not, this has been a topic that's been a debate for a while in the product management and project management world. Some people passionately argue that dates should be banned from roadmaps. Others claim that it's the most useful part of the roadmap. So if it buckled down to how to decide which option's right for you, there's a few things you need to consider. To start, you have to briefly recap what a roadmap is. You have to understand what a roadmap is in order to understand whether it needs a date. So, a roadmap. This is just a high level plan that states how your product or service is going to evolve over the next, let's just say 12 months. Typically, that's a standard roadmap broken down by quarter. And if you have a solid roadmap, then you can say, okay, so it's broken down by quarter. Does it need additional dates or do we put dates on that at all? So if you're trying to state dates and specific time frames, the answer to whether or not it's going to be useful strictly depends on your audience. So I guess what I'm trying to say is the first step is to figure out and identify who your target audience is. If your target audience is going to be a group of C-level executives, they are going to enjoy having some type of guidance or date there, right? If your audience is going to be a group of security-minded engineers, they may not be as concerned about the date. So let me explain it this way. If you're using a roadmap to communicate with customers, to demonstrate that you're committed to the product and have some great ideas that are in a pipeline, you should probably not put any dates at all. Use a big coarse-grained time frame, like in the first half of next year or in the second half of next year. This is just a great way for you to do it so that people can get excited about upcoming features without having you locked down or tied into a date. If you were trying to do this if you're trying to do this for other people, so if you're using an internal roadmap that guides the work of stakeholders and development teams, you probably want to put more specific timeframes or dates. Now, I know I can hear people screaming at me already. Why? Well, one, it helps you understand if what you're trying to do is realistic. So if you have dates, then it shows that, okay, this is a realistic time frame and it makes sense. Other times, as you implement the roadmap, unforeseen things can happen. So if the progress is slower than anticipated, or if something chosen is more difficult to use, or if user feedback or early increments suggest that the effort's way higher than you thought it was going to be, you can make a trade-off decision because you have things in the roadmap that are date-driven. If you just do things at a real high level, you're not going to have that same flexibility to make those trade-off type decisions. And of course, the trade-off assumes that you thought about the specific time frame that you're trying to do this in, and you have to pivot or adjust. But there's still so many people who say, okay, yeah, that makes sense, Lee, but I don't know, because the second I put a date, somebody's going to lock it in. I'm still not sold on using dates. If you feel like you're still uncomfortable about having dates for an internal roadmap, ask yourself why. Why are you uncomfortable? A common cause is that stakeholders want very specific features delivered by a certain date. If that's the case for you, then you should just try to figure out, instead of trying to figure out how to solve the symptom, figure out how to solve the problem. If you start by using a more outcome-based, goal-oriented roadmap instead of a traditional feature-based roadmap, the outcome-based planning focuses first and foremost on the benefits that the product should provide. If you do this, it'll allow you to reframe your conversation with stakeholders and make that roadmap make more sense. Rather than haggling over individual features, seek agreement on the impact that you hope to achieve. For example, we're going to acquire new customers or increase our engagement or reduce costs. Then consider if the feature helps, or if the feature request that comes in helps you achieve the outcomes within a desired time frame. If that's the case, add it to the roadmap. If not, adapt that item or decline it and throw it out. Now, when I'm saying decline and throw it out, I'm not saying get rid of it completely. I'm just saying don't make it part of your typical roadmap. You have to do what makes sense, right? So the second way is learn to effectively say no to stakeholders. Now, this is where it gets interesting because some people believe that the power to say no is not there. There's a great video from Henrik Nieberg, Agile Product Ownership in a Nutshell, where he goes through and really describes the importance of saying no and how no doesn't mean never, no, never. No means no, not right now. But sometimes no does mean no, never. And it's just a great video for you to watch. But if you understand how to use active listening, if you understand that there's power in saying no, and that if you just say yes to everything, get this, you're actually saying no to something else. I'm going to say it one more time. So if you're just saying yes to everything, that means in essence, you're saying no to something different. So when you're saying yes, you're actually saying no. So you need to learn how to say no so that you're already saying no anyway, but you're saying no to the right things. Your job is not to please a stakeholder. Your job is to maximize the value that your product or service creates for the users and the business as a whole. So don't feel bad if you have to decline a request or defer a request. Innovation is saying no to 1,000 things. You have to really pick carefully what's going to be done. And that's a quote from Steve Jobs, right? And we all know that if you're trying to innovate, you have to feel comfortable doing it. You have to feel comfortable saying no. You have to feel comfortable with the product or service, and you have to be excited. If you feel like you can't decline a request or that you're not empowered to decline a request, you're probably facing an issue with leadership or some type of empowerment issue. You shouldn't ever feel like you don't have the authority to effectively manage what you're doing. If this is the case, you need to engage and meet with the decision makers and help them understand the level of empowerment that you need to succeed in your job and to maximize the value that your product or service creates. You need to get with people and say, hey, these are the tools that I need to be successful. If you can help me with those, great. If you can't, that's fine too. But I need to understand what my limits are, what my goals are, where my job is, and I need to make sure that I am on board, on track, and that I am able to deliver the highest value in the shortest amount of time with as few defects as possible and as little waste as possible. That's going to do it for this episode. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have a topic you want us to discuss, learn more at AgileDad.com. We'd love to hear from you. As always, we encourage you to stay healthy, stay well, and stay agile, my friends. Until next time, do take care.